After World War II, one of the questions was how could the soldiers, the German soldiers, do the things that they did in the concentration camps and the POW camps. And so Milgram set up an experiment in which he had test subjects, actors that would sit in a chair with electrical wires that would be hooked up to them. And the test subjects were the people that came in and they sat at a desk with a control knob. And they were asked by a gentleman that was in a white lab coat to read questions to the actor who was on the other side of this wall. And if the actor got the question wrong, they were to hit a knob on the switch, and it was to send a shock to the actor. The actor wasn't actually electrocuted, but the person sitting in the chair turning the knob thought that they were electrocuting the person on the other side. So at first it was a mild shock, and then the actor would, kind of jump and twitch a little bit. Again, they would go through the series of questions, and they would come to another question, and the person would get it wrong, the actor would get it wrong, and again, the subject that was sitting in the seat would hit the switch again, and again shock the person. Eventually, the voltage began to get turned up higher and higher and higher until the actor got to the point where he or she would be screaming at the top of their lungs of how agonizingly painful this electric shock was. And again, time and time again, the subject sitting in the chair would hit the switch. Milgram was fascinated how far people are willing to go when there's someone in authority giving them instruction and direction on what to do. That white lab coat gave them that view that this person obviously was in control of this experiment and knew that the person on the other side wasn't being electrocuted, so they kept on, the gentleman in the lab coat kept on saying, well, they're not really being hurt by this. It was a test to see how far we would go in trusting those who are in positions of authority. The same thing's true of a similar psychological experiment that was done in Stanford University in the 70s, called the Prison Experiment by Professor Philip Zimbardo. And this experiment, basically, it was students that were on the campus there at Stanford University, and they were broken down into two groups. Some were guards and some were prisoners, and they were inside this fake prison, and no one was actually locked inside a jail cell. The prisoners could actually come and go as they want, and the experiment was supposed to take, I believe, 3 days. And after about a day and a half, they had to end the experiment because the guards got to the point of being so sadistic and the way that they were treating the prisoners. And again, it had to do with how far are we willing to go to trust those who are in positions of authority. It's hard for us to trust the message that we are given by those who are in positions of authority, and yet that's what John knows he's dealing with when he writes his sermon to the early churches. They don't know who to trust. They don't know who has the message of God. And so he says, test the Spirit. See if there is love and grace communicated in the message. See if the physical person of Jesus Christ is recognized in the spirit of the person that is delivering the message. And finally, third, see if the person has been credentialed or received authorization by us, the disciples of Jesus, to speak on behalf of the message that was given to us by Jesus Christ. Ultimately, we see destruction all around us, and we see mistrust. And as I said before, those who have spoken in the name of God have done wonderful things and have done horrendous things. And we see, too, how it is easy for folks to be mistrusting of anyone who says that they are a person of God because of the things that have been done in God's name. The message of God is this. It reveals love and grace. It reveals the person of Jesus Christ. And it is not a message that is given alone, but rather a message that is given to the community. That through the church, we are able to confirm in the Spirit whether or not it is a message from God or not. Anyone who says, I don't need to ask anyone else to pray with me about this, I know this is God's message, I will be highly questionable of. God speaks to us in community. Our own polity was in this church, the Congregational Church. So much power lays in you, the congregation, when it comes to decisions of importance that affect the life of this church and the decisions that we make in ministry. Because the trust is as God speaks to us as a whole community. rather than God speaks to us just as individuals. That's not to say that God doesn't speak to us in our prayers as individuals, but God confirms the message in the revealing of it through others who belong to the faith, who we know are members of the faith, who are members of the church. How many of us from time to time have felt God speaking to us only to come across a friend that we know to be a fellow Christian to reveal to us a message that confirms the message that we believe God was speaking to us? God always confirms it in the revealing of God's self to the larger community. We are called to proclaim a message of God, a message of love and grace, a message that exalts the personhood of Jesus Christ, and we are called to pray for one another and to confer with one another and to share the messages that God is giving us with one another so that we may know the message is from God. Because when false messages are given, it creates that spirit of distrust, that anarchy, that chaos that breaks out. Last, I'll say this. As I've been watching the TV over the last couple months, one of the things that has been deeply troubling me is a message that I see over and over again of mistrust, of deception, of lies, of slander. Hopefully most of you know what I'm talking about with that date coming up in November pretty soon. I wrote an editorial message recently to the paper, and I said I had gone to a seminar at the middle school here in Kennebunk, and I had to deal with the issue of bullying. And I said, as I look at these messages that I see on the radio and on the TV, and the flyers that I get in my mailbox, and everything that I hear going on, I see bullying going on left and right. I see slander. I see mistrust. I see deceit. I see an ugliness. And I know the danger of it because I know it can create a spirit of distrust. And as I read that book, The Memoirs of a Boy Soldier, when you cannot trust those who are in positions of authority, who can you trust? As Christians, we are called to have a social conscience in the decisions that we make with our voting, and so I will not endorse any candidate. I don't believe that that is my position to do so. But anyone who uses smear and slander, I question whether or not they are a person of integrity. My life experience has taught me to trust Christians because I know that God speaks to them, and I know that their faith has been proven and that they are people of integrity. People who are not susceptible to giving in to slander and smear and lies and mistrust. And I desire for my leaders to have integrity, to be able to stand firm and to proclaim what is true, because I believe God uses them as instruments for the good of all of us. When we hear messages that lead us to be mistrustful of others, when we hear messages of condemnation that do not proclaim love and grace, when we do not see the personhood of Jesus Christ, that doesn't necessarily mean that the person has to be a Christ-like figure, but in some way there should be a recognition that the values and the principles that Christ taught us are the messages that God has given to us. And I think there needs to be a confirmation of those in the community who know the individuals, who say by what authority and what right do they have to speak on the issues that they speak on. Let us put our faith into practice. As John says, let us test the spirit of the messages that we hear. Let us discern who are people of integrity, who are here to do God's will, and who are those who have a spirit of deception. And as I said in the beginning, that spirit of deception is the one that allows us to think or believe that we are God, rather than the ones that allow us to think and believe God is the one who is calling us, that lead us into that deeper relationship with God. Let us test the spirits in all the decisions that we make. And whoever comes to us in the name of God, let us ask by what authority and what right do you have to proclaim it? What confirmation has been given to you? Does it match with the personhood revealed to us in Jesus Christ through the Scriptures? And is it a message of love and grace? These are the three principles and the three things that we have in our toolbox to be able to test the Spirit of God, to know who has the right to proclaim and to use God's name.